The Trojan horse, the ancient deception that ended a war. One of the most legendary lies ever told began over 3,000 years ago during the Trojan War. After 10 years of fighting, the Greeks pretended to surrender and left behind a massive wooden horse as a peace offering. The Trojans, believing their enemy had finally given up, brought the horse inside the city walls as a trophy of victory. But hidden inside were elite Greek soldiers. Once night fell and Troy was asleep, the Greeks crept out, opened the gates, and allowed their army to pour in. Troy was burned to the ground. Historians still debate if the event actually happened. Some think it's symbolic, others believe it could have been a siege engine misinterpreted as a horse. But regardless of the truth, the story remains timeless. The Trojan horse became the perfect metaphor for deception, how a single clever trick can destroy even the strongest fortress. The donation of Constantine, a forgery that shook Europe. Jump ahead to the Middle Ages, and another lie was shaping the destiny of Europe. The donation of Constantine was a document supposedly written by Emperor Constantine in the 4th century, granting the Pope vast territories and supreme authority over all of Christendom. For centuries, this decree gave the Catholic Church enormous political and financial power. Kings bowed to popes, and the Church claimed divine authority to rule. But in the 15th century, a scholar named Lorenzo Valla decided to investigate. Using careful linguistic analysis, he discovered the text contained Latin words and grammar that didn't exist in Constantine's time, proving it was a forgery written hundreds of years later. This revelation shocked Europe. The Church had built centuries of influence on a lie. The donation of Constantine became one of the first major examples of how fake documents and propaganda can control entire civilizations. The Salem witch trials, lies fueled by fear. In 1692, in the Puritan town of Salem, Massachusetts, paranoia and superstition mixed into deadly chaos. A few young girls claimed they were being attacked by witches, and soon, dozens of people were accused of witchcraft. The accusations had no real evidence. People were judged based on rumors, dreams, and emotional testimonies. Over 200 people were arrested, 20 were executed, and countless lives were ruined. Later investigations revealed that many of the victims had lied or exaggerated their symptoms, possibly due to attention-seeking, personal grudges, or even a psychological phenomenon known as mass hysteria. The Salem witch trials remain a warning of how lies, when mixed with fear and ignorance, can turn communities against themselves. The Nazi propaganda machine, lies that fueled a genocide. Fast forward to the 20th century, and the power of lies reached horrifying new levels under Nazi Germany. Adolf Hitler and his propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels used every form of media, radio, newspapers, films, and education to spread false ideas about race, nationalism, and Jewish conspiracy. They repeated the same lies so often that millions believed them. These deceptions created blind loyalty, justified persecution, and ultimately led to the Holocaust, one of humanity's darkest tragedies. Goebbels famously said, "If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it." This principle of propaganda, using repetition to turn lies into truth, still echoes in politics and media today. The Dreyfus affair, a nation torn by a false conviction. In 1894, France was thrown into crisis when Captain Alfred Dreyfus, a Jewish officer in the French army, was falsely accused of spying for Germany. He was tried in secret, convicted with almost no evidence, and sent to the remote Devil's Island prison. The truth later came out. The real spy was another officer, but the military covered it up to protect its image. The scandal divided France. Some demanded justice for Dreyfus, while others clung to the lie, driven by anti-Semitism and nationalism. Journalist Émile Zola risked his career and his life when he published J'accuse, an open letter exposing the corruption and deceit behind the case. Eventually, Dreyfus was pardoned and reinstated, but the damage was done. The Dreyfus affair remains a lesson on how prejudice and institutional lies can destroy both individuals and nations. The Gulf of Tonkin incident, the lie that started a war. In 1964, U.S. President Lyndon B. Johnson told the world that North Vietnamese forces had attacked 2 American ships in the Gulf of Tonkin. This unprovoked attack was used as justification to escalate military involvement in Vietnam, leading to one of the most devastating wars in modern history. But declassified documents later revealed the shocking truth: the second attack never happened. The event was either misunderstood or deliberately exaggerated to gain congressional approval for war. That lie cost millions of lives, shattered public trust, and fueled decades of skepticism toward government decisions. The Gulf of Tonkin incident stands as one of the most consequential fabrications in American history. The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, a lie that spread hatred worldwide. Around 1903, in Tsarist Russia, a fake document began circulating called the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. It claimed to be minutes from secret meetings of Jewish leaders planning to dominate the world through finance and politics. The text was a complete fabrication, plagiarized from a political satire unrelated to Jews. But it spread like wildfire, feeding anti-Semitic conspiracy theories across Europe and the United States. Even after being proven false multiple times, the protocols continued to influence extremist movements, including Nazi Germany, which used it as evidence to justify persecution. It remains one of the most damaging lies ever written, showing how a single false narrative can poison entire societies. The tobacco industry's great lie: smoking is safe. In the mid-20th century, cigarette companies launched massive advertising campaigns claiming smoking was harmless, even healthy. They hired doctors for commercials, used glamorous movie stars, and sponsored independent research to downplay health risks. When studies began linking smoking to lung cancer, tobacco executives denied it. They testified before Congress insisting nicotine wasn't addictive and smoking wasn't deadly. But leaked internal documents later exposed their deception. The companies knew the truth for decades, that smoking causes cancer and kills millions, but chose profit over honesty. This corporate lie cost millions of lives and remains one of the largest public health deceptions in history. Weapons of mass destruction: the Iraq War's false premise. In 2003, the world was told that Iraq possessed weapons of mass destruction, nuclear, chemical, and biological, posing an immediate threat. This claim became the main justification for the U.S. invasion of Iraq. But after years of war and investigation, no such weapons were ever found. Intelligence reports were exaggerated, and some evidence was fabricated or misinterpreted. The result was catastrophic: hundreds of thousands of deaths, the collapse of Iraq's government, and years of instability that fueled terrorism and civil war. This modern lie didn't just change one nation, it reshaped global politics and permanently damaged trust in government intelligence. The moon landing conspiracy, a lie that refuses to die. While not a lie told by the powerful, this modern myth shows how misinformation can live forever. Since the 1970s, conspiracy theorists have claimed the 1969 Apollo 11 moon landing was faked by NASA in a Hollywood studio. They point to shadows, flag movement, and camera reflections as proof. But every piece of evidence supports the truth. The moon landing happened. There are lunar rock samples, thousands of hours of data, and independent verification from countries around the world, even the Soviet Union, which had every reason to expose a fake. Yet the conspiracy persists because it taps into a growing distrust of authority and the human tendency to question reality. It's a reminder that once a lie spreads, it can take generations to die, even when the truth is undeniable. The fake blood libel, lies that led to centuries of violence. Dating back to the Middle Ages, one of the most destructive and long-lasting lies in European history was the blood libel. It claimed that Jewish communities kidnapped and murdered Christian children to use their blood in religious rituals, a total fabrication. These lies were often spread by political or religious leaders to distract from economic hardship or unrest. The result? Pogroms, massacres, and centuries of persecution across Europe. The blood libel shows how dangerous fabricated stories can be when tied to religion and fear. Even though it was repeatedly disproven, it continued to spread, proving that lies often survive not because they're believable, but because people want to believe them.